to when we have rocket propulsion
and physics, right? I know.
During the big science club.
Science club.
Extreme.
How many of you, when you think of physics, you think of something that's very boring? Okay. I thought physics was pretty boring too. Until I learned about modern physics. Today I'm going to give you a little bit of background on modern physics, and I'm also going to talk about how that you can apply that to your daily life, and how it might shift your mind, shifted my mind. A little story about physics. So physics really started with Mr. Sir Isaac Newton. And he was sitting around one day, as the story goes, under a tree. Apple falls on his head. I'm sure it's a wives' tale. And he started wondering, how does the world work? How is this apple sitting on my head right now? He went about took on the goal of figuring out how the world works. What are the rules that apply to the world? Now, there's another story about him that he waited till a couple of smart people died, and then he took all their ideas and made it popular. But this is how the story goes. And he said that using these two inputs, that space is always constant, that everything is always the same size, that a foot would be a foot, and that time is always constant, that a minute is always a minute. We can all agree on that. That these are how things work in the world. So you have how acceleration works, how gravity works, how everything works. It's based on these two inputs. And that stood up for a very long period of time. So for a couple hundred years, everyone accepted that, and almost every experiment that was run basically confirmed this. Every once in a while, scientists would have, or physicists would have, an experiment that would be just slightly off. Imagine how confusing that would be if you're running an experiment and you have these laws that are exactly accurate, except for every once in a while, a little digit would be off, way out somewhere else. But they didn't think about that too much. So then Mr. Einstein came along. And at the age of 16 years old, he started to wonder what the world would look like if he was on a motorcycle traveling as fast as the speed of light. So he's starting to get into the conceptual realm. What he figured out over many years afterwards was that space and time are not constants, that they're actually relative. And this is where the theory of relativity gets its name from. That space, this table, if we were going very fast, much faster than we're going now, this table would actually physically be smaller. And if we were going much faster than now, then a minute would actually be like 30 seconds. This is pretty mind-blowing to know that space and time are not relative. And the way Einstein described this is like, we're sitting on a train and we can see out the car, but we can only see one part. We can't see everything else up and down. That's why Newton's laws mostly hold up, because our perspective is held in lock. We're always going at the same speed. But the truth is that things aren't the same. So I said I would apply this to your everyday life. And you ever heard the expression relative, everything is relative? Well, that's what this talks about. And I used to think everything is relative, like, yeah, most things are relative. But really, literally everything is relative. Even space and time are relative. And I don't know about you, but I come to Toastmasters to become a better communicator. Anyone else trying to become better communicators? Perspective is a huge part of communication. I'll tell you a little story about work I had the other day. I do business development for a company that does consulting. And we had a client that we were going on to the next phase of a project, and they asked for something completely different than the path we were going down. So we were asking for more budget, $20,000 more budget to complete what they were asking to do. So I wrote up this big email, it was a couple pages long, and said, we gave the client the budget, and they said, obviously the first reaction is, why are you charging me more money? I know why we're charging you more money. It's because we're doing these activities, we're doing this, we're doing that. Came up with a couple pages long. And I sent it to my boss first. I always run things like that by him first. because he always has good perspective. So I went in his office and said, okay, Brian, I've read your email. So what? I was just sitting there like, I don't know. So what? He asked me why he's spending more money. So what is we have more activities. What does this matter to him? Put yourself in his shoes. How is he going to go to his boss and ask for more money based on more activities because he asked for more things? He said, Brian, if you had two buckets, a bucket of gold and a bucket of oil, same weight, which would be worth more? Well, based on today's prices, the bucket of gold would be worth more. I knew it was a trick question. He said, exactly, the gold would be worth more. Unless you were in the desert, stranded in your car, overheated, and you needed to put more oil in your car. It's like, Joe always gets me on those. We ended up completely revising the email, and it basically said, Joseph, why is he asking for this change of scope? I said, well, he's going to save about $2 million over 2 years, and it's the right thing to do. He said, restate that. Tell him, based on this decision, we're going to save $2 million a year. So what are the implications? The implications are it's going to cost about $20,000 more. Restate why it's important, why we agree with them. Well, we agree it's worth spending $20,000 more to save $2 million more. And by the end of it, I had realized Joe was putting me in the client's perspective and giving our client a reason to go to his boss and ask for $20,000 more to save $2 million. Instead of saying, I asked for these changes, now they have more activities, and now I need to spend more money. We're giving him the ability to convince his client. So I hope you'll take a message with you in that everything really is relative. It's a law of the universe, it's proven, and you can apply that to your daily communications.